So guys, I'm now doing check your understanding number 2. All right. This is on page 190. We are going to be factoring trinomials with rational coefficients. So as you can see here, the middle term has a decimal as well as the last term. While in letter B, the middle term is a fraction. So what I do here is different from what the book is suggesting. Okay, in the example, you will see that they are factoring out a decimal whenever there is a decimal number that appears in the trinomial, just like this one. Me, what I will do is I will just turn them into whole numbers, which is easier for me because in the end, it's really the same thing. Okay, what do I mean by that? What number can I use so that when I multiply the whole thing, I will be able to turn this into a whole number as well as this one. I think multiplying everything by 2, all right, would allow you to get rid of the 1.5 and the 0.5. However, guys, remember that if you just multiply it by this, and I will show you what I mean. By multiplying the trinomial by 2, that will get rid of the decimals. But you have to understand that just by multiplying by 2, you are actually changing the expression. So you need to ask yourself, if I multiply by 2, I should also be dividing by 2 so that in the end, you are actually not changing the expression. Remember that an expression can be multiplied by 100 as long as you divide it by 100 so that you don't change it. It can be multiplied by -4 and then divide by -4 so that you don't change it. So in this case, if we are multiplying by 2, to make sure that we are not changing the value of the expression, we should multiply by 1/2 as well. All right? Meaning, aside from just multiplying by 2, I also have to be multiplying by 1/2. All right? So there's a 1/2 over here. So that in the end, if you're thinking, okay, why am I doing that? Because these two cancels out, so I'm not really doing anything to the expression. I hope that makes sense. But let's continue. So the 1/2, I will still keep outside, but the 2, I will be multiplying to each one of these terms. All right? So what we're going to have is 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. Okay? So remember that if you do the distributive property one more time, this time using the 1/2, multiplied to each of those terms, you will go back to the original expression. Okay, so you're actually okay doing that. But you are free to follow what the book suggests, which is to factor out the decimal. I just feel that that's actually harder. What is the next step? So we need to factor this. And to do that, you can either do systematic trial, and some of you can already figure out that it's going to be 2x plus 1 and x plus 1. And if you're not sure about that, okay. Oh, sorry, that's a negative. Okay, so this one, the middle term, should have been a negative. Okay, good thing that I noticed that. Okay, so this one is 2x squared minus 3x. Okay, so that would be 2x minus 1 and x minus 1 for the factors. Now, if you're thinking, okay, how do I do that? Okay, well then let's do decomposition. 1/2 times whatever. Okay, so we need to figure out what would be going into this binomial and this binomial. So let's leave that for now. So to be able to factor this, we need to find two numbers that multiply to the AC value. A times C is equal to 2 times 1, which is 2. While the other one would be the B value, which is -3. All right. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to -2. At the same time, they add up to -3. And I think that would be -2 and -1. Okay. And then what? you will be decomposing this. All right. And this is how it's going to work. 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 will have the middle term broken up into two parts. The 2x squared remains the same. The 1 remains the same. It's the middle terms that changes. All right. So this one becomes negative 2x minus 1x, or just x. And just to be clear again, where did that negative 2x minus x come from? These two numbers. Okay. All right. Here we go. We are now going to factor these two terms, and that would be 2x times x minus 1. And again, I told you last time that if you are doing this correctly, the next two terms, which are these, will have the same factors if you are doing this correctly, which means what the number out here that you will multiply by this binomial to be getting negative x plus 1, and that would be negative 1. All right, quickly check. Negative 1 times x, negative 1x, or negative x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, so we're good. What is common to these two terms? X minus 1. All right, if you're wondering, how did that happen? So these two get factored out, leaves you with 2x minus 1. All right, now this is a common mistake. So far we have done this correctly, but remember, this factored form is the fact, or are the factors of this one. Okay, remember that you need to make sure that you go back to the original expression, which was this one. All right, all we did was we multiplied that by 1/2 and 2 to be able to get rid of the decimals. Therefore, the final answer to the factors of x squared minus 1.5x plus 0.5 would be x minus 1 times 2x minus 1, which is what we have here. But do not forget, there is a 1/2 that we have at the beginning. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If it doesn't, so please take the time to stop this video and watch it again. Let's go to the next one. X squared minus 17 over 3x minus 2. All right. So I'm going to be doing it here. X squared minus 17 over 3x minus 2. Once again, what I will do is I will try to get rid of the fraction to be able to turn everything into a whole number, just like what I did in the first question wherein I got rid of the decimals. There is a 3 as a denominator, so maybe if I multiply everything by 3, at the same time multiply everything by 1/3, I'm not really changing the expression. Okay. So let's do the 3, or let's do the distributive property for the 3 here. What I will have is 1/3 times, so 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times 17 over 3, that's 51 over 3, but then the 3's cancel out, it becomes just 17x, or minus 17x minus 6. All right. So we go back to what we were doing, wherein we are going to end up with decomposition. So two numbers that multiply to the a and c value. So once again, let's leave this for now. Let us just factor this and bring back the 1/3 in the end. The factors of 3x squared minus 17x can be figured out by doing a times c, and the a value is 3. The c value is negative 6, gives us negative 18. The b value is negative 17. Therefore, what two numbers multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 17? All right, that's pretty easy. I think that would be negative 18 and 1, and you can check it if you like. What happens next? The 3x squared minus 17x minus 6 would have its middle term broken up into two parts. So By now, I think you already know the 3x squared remains the same. The negative 6 remains the same. The middle term, the negative 17x, is split up into these two. It becomes negative 18x plus 1x, or just an x. And then, once again, we break this up. We factor out whatever we can from the first two terms, and that would be 3x. Okay? What would come after? X minus 6. So quickly do a check. 3x times x, 3x squared, 3x times negative 6, negative 18x. So we're good. And also, if you're doing this correctly, you will have another x minus 6 over here. If you are looking at this to be able to factor out an x minus 6, that means a plus 1 is factored out. And what can be factored out from this whole thing? It would be x minus 6. And when you do that, it's sort of getting rid of this here, and you now are left with just 3x, this one here, plus 1, this one here. Once again, I am cautioning you, make sure that you understand that this one are the factors of this. If you go back to the very beginning, remember that we have a 1/3 to deal with, all right, over here. So do not forget. So if we are going to be coming up with a final answer for this, so the final answer for the factors of x squared minus 17 over 3x minus 2, okay? The final answer for this would be 1/3 times x minus 6 times 3x plus 1. I hope that makes sense. Thank you, and please do the practice question. Bye now.